name is Steve McCoy Thompson, and I am happily married with 2 children who are happily gainfully employed. We live in California, but I've had the blessings of being able to live and work in over 50 countries around the world, both with big business and having led several nonprofits trying to make a difference in the world. And so we're here to talk about the topic of gratitude. And it means a lot to me personally. It actually has infused my work, which we'll talk about. And it's a really important subject that I think is maybe a little bit misunderstood. I think that gratitude has 2 sides to it, 2 aspects, but we often focus on one side. And that's really the idea that gratitude is a state of being, that we are supposed to feel grateful. We want to feel grateful. And that's important. In fact, I think Google defines gratitude as a spirit of feeling thankful for what we have. And in fact, there's a lot of science around that. But there's also another side to it, which I want to talk about, which is that gratitude, I think, can be a verb, an action verb. And if we put gratitude into action, it has more meaning to us and it becomes self-sustaining. So let's talk about the first side first. So gratitude as a state of being. And there's a lot of science behind how important gratitude is. You know, they've done a lot of very thorough studies that show that feeling grateful will have a very positive effect on your physiology. They show that people who feel grateful actually feel less pain, that there's less pain in their life. Their blood pressure will go down, their satisfaction with life will go up, and it increases your life, and so it really has a lot of positive scientific effects. I believe there's an endogenous opioid that is released when one feels grateful, and that has the powerful effects on reducing senses of pain and stress, etc. So how do we feel grateful? One way is just to simply take a moment. My daughter taught me something which I thought was really beautiful, and I've tried to incorporate it into my own life. And it's the idea that when you go to sleep at night, when you're lying in bed, imagine yourself going into a movie theater, if you still go to movie theaters, and close your eyes and take a mental image, a snapshot of those moments in the day that were meaningful to you, that you're grateful for. And sometimes I do the same myself. You're so forward thinking, always worried about the future, that you forget to reflect on what has happened during the day. And so it might be simply noticing a beautiful tree, or having a conversation with a friend, or doing something satisfying at work. And that process of just taking a moment to reflect on those moments that you've experienced can infuse yourself with a sense of gratitude. And I'm telling you, it's made a big difference in my life. You know, when I'm going to bed and I'm thinking about what I'm going to do the next day or the next week or the next month, just reflecting on what I did during the day, that's been helpful. And moreover, it makes me intentional, so that when I'm out walking or working or talking, I will sort of take a step back mentally and try to take that mental snapshot. So like if I notice a tree or a flower, I'll say, okay, boom, I'm gonna picture that, and that's gonna be part of my mental movie experience tonight. And so it makes me intentional as well as grateful. And so that little practice has made a huge difference. So let's talk about the other side, which I don't think gets quite enough credit. And what that is simply the idea that when you feel grateful, but I think gratitude needs to be fed, right? And one way to feed it is through those mental movies that I mentioned. But another way to feel grateful, to sustain and feed the sense of gratitude, is to pay it forward, to give. And I think that side of gratitude is not is not celebrated enough. I'll give you a story. So there's a friend of mine, his name is Randy Haken, and at the age of 50, when he was maybe going through a midlife crisis, a lot of people do that at that point, he decided to devote that year as a year of gratitude. And he went on to Facebook, and every day he posted something that he was grateful for. And he admits that by about the mid-year point, he struggled to think about things that he was grateful for, but he kept going through it. And by the end of that year, he wanted to actualize it, and in effect kind of continue and sustain that experience of feeling grateful and putting it into the world. So he reflected on what he's good at, and he's actually a fairly successful venture capitalist. And so he put together this program to take the idea of venture capital, where you identify high potential organizations and invest in them, but apply that to the nonprofit sector. And so he created this organization called Gratitude Network. And I've been very grateful to be part of that process. I've been a coach to several nonprofit leaders throughout the year. I served as an interim executive director, and now I serve on the board. And to me, it's a great way to take all the things that we feel and then pay it forward, and working with organizations and helping them to do good in the world. So that's one example of taking one sense of gratitude, the feeling of gratitude, and turning it into an action verb to put it out into the world. And that action in and of itself, I think, helps to perpetuate the feelings of gratitude. So I'll tell you, in my experience with coaching some of these nonprofits around the world, working with nonprofits that are working with children in Ukraine, or trying to stop child trafficking in Thailand, or helping poor children who are runaways in India to prevent them from getting sucked into gang life. Just talking with those people, like coaching them, helping them, then I see what they're doing in the world, and that makes me feel grateful that there are people out there in the world who are doing this kind of work. And so I think that getting out there and expressing gratitude, it could be just as simple as talking with a friend, right? You might feel grateful for that friendship, but by going out and sharing that gratitude with your friend, or your relative, or a long lost relative that you haven't communicated with in a while, then that is not only going to make them feel better, but I promise you they will reflect that back to you almost as a mirror, and it sort of helps feed this sense of gratitude. So it really can be a virtuous circle, and I feel that if we can practice both in a meaningful way, try to have this sense of gratitude, this feeling of gratitude, looking at, taking mental pictures, being aware and intentional about having those moments of gratitude and seeking them out, and then moving forward and sharing that sense of gratitude, either by working with a nonprofit or giving in whatever way you think you can, then that will make a difference, and that will help feed your own sense of gratitude. So there's a related aspect of gratitude, which I think infuses the sense of gratitude, which is simply this idea of love. That love is the lifeblood of our life, frankly. And there was a great quote that I just heard from a friend of mine who quoted the great Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. And what it is, it basically says that being loved deeply gives us strength. And in a sense, that's that sense of gratitude, feeling grateful. But then the counterpoint to that is that loving deeply gives us courage. And again, that's that idea of moving into action. And I think there's no better example of that than parenthood, right? I remember we had our first child, and he was a bit of a challenge as a 1-year-old. He lost weight, he cried a lot, and so we were about to have the second child, and I thought there's no way that I can expand my heart, love more than this one, because this one was wonderful and exhausting. And then I was worried that when our daughter came along, that I wouldn't be able to love that creature. But it was incredible that as soon as she was born, my heart expanded, the love grew. And so I actually felt this sense of strength, this sense of gratitude that we now have two. And they have been such a blessing. And frankly, then loving those children in return has given me courage to go out and do more things. It's a sense of, okay, I've done this. I've had these children, they're my responsibility, and we're handling it. And it actually gives me courage to go out and do more in the world. I remember when I was, just starting out in college, and we had the opportunity to go live in China for a year, and just taking that risk to go out there in the world gave me the courage to do more. So I was grateful for the opportunity to live in China at a time when the country was just simply emerging into the world. It was very exciting. And then I came back from that with a sense of courage to go out and do things in the world. And so I think what I would just again suggest is take those moments to feel the gratitude, and then also think about, reflect on, meditate on, if you like, what are the ways you can activate your gratitude. Some people are busy and they want to donate to nonprofits, and that's wonderful. And having run nonprofits, I can tell you, we are grateful for that. But a lot of times that's not going to feed you as a person. And so if you can get involved, do some of the volunteer activity, do some of the coaching like I've done, then that's going to help activate your sense of gratitude, and you're going to see what other people are doing in the world. Another thing which I think is really interesting is the idea of social media. So people complain about social media as being negative, and a lot of it is, but you can train the algorithms of the social media that you're following. So my wife, she actively courts people who are doing Instagram posts. There's a librarian, there's a teacher, there's a guy who's just gone out and just tries to do something nice in the world every day. And seeing those moments, one, it changes the algorithm so she gets more of those feeds into her inbox, if you will. But it also inspires her to do good in the world, and it makes her feel like, okay, the world is not such a bad place after all. There are people out there in the world who are doing good, and then she wants to be part of that. And so I think that we can take control of gratitude, right? That we actively seek moments of gratitude, we actively reflect on moments of gratitude, and we actively consider how we can then move that sense of gratitude forward into the world so that it'll feed ourselves. So really, I think gratitude has been presented, as I began this topic with, as a kind of almost like a passive feeling, and it shouldn't be. It should be something that we take control of, that we are creating and manifesting our own gratitude for ourselves and for the world. So I thank you for being part of this journey. I hope that these thoughts around gratitude might give you thought about how you can activate gratitude in your own life. And I appreciate just being part of this discussion. So thank you very much.
If you want to talk about anything at all, then you know who to call. Just tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana, tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana, just tell Sanjana.